In this guide, I will teach you everything I know on how to sleep properly. Sleep is the one metric in life. When you fix your sleep, you literally fix all the areas of your life. The dangers of this poor sleep, it has a severe, like even fatal issues. In fact, there was a research in 2025. It says that 172 different diseases is associated with poor sleep. I don't want this to be a fear-mongering video, so let's transform it into the positive. When you have a good sleep, you have better productivity, you would have better social skills, you have improved cardiovascular health, you would have stronger immune system, you have weight management. You, like most people these days are obese, whatever, all because of bad sleep. There's a video I mentioned about Tahajjud. The reason you're not praying Tahajjud is because of poor sleep. So now what's the roadmap for this video? We'll cover the history of sleep, how the cavemen sleep, all the way till the modern age. We'll cover the researches on good and also bad or poor sleep. And there's a great debate, which is like, to be able to be great, you would kind of sacrifice your sleep, and would cover that. And I personally think sleep, you should choose to sleep better. Like people might think to be ambitious, whatever, you have to sacrifice your sleep, but perhaps not, because by the end of that, you would completely be on my own side. Would also cover sleeping early, like why sleeping early is like the most difficult task in human existence. I also give you my own arguments why 10 hours of sleep is too extreme. I'll give you a picture perfect sleep and how it looks like, and I'll give you a realistic routine you can follow, and the list goes on. I will also teach you this one secret protocol, and I've been molding this protocol for the last 2 years, and now I'm going to give you this secret protocol that would enable you to sleep less and do more. Actually allowed me to memorize half of the Qur'an. It allowed me to produce in-depth guides like this. It allowed me to do so much with lesser sleep. Look, I am not perfect. Like, I struggled with this sleep my whole life, and I'm not kidding with this. To the point that I had like the some issues with my like size, whatever. I have poor sleep. From when I was young all the way to around 17, 18 years of age, I had a lot of problems with my sleep until I started to figure out how I started to like fix my own sleep. And I wish this video was available, because there are so many things. Like sometimes, like for example, like when you don't have money, they will tell you buy $2,000 bed, whatever, to get good sleep. And sleep is like the most important thing. Like I said, I'm making this video because when I was struggling, there was not such videos on this topic. However long this video will be, this is like a full in-depth guide on sleep. I understand why it's not easy for you, because the sleep we're gonna give in this full guide, this is the hardest thing in human existence. I'm giving you the hardest thing a man could have. I'm not gonna sugarcoat everything. You're gonna struggle with people. It's true. But if you want good sleep, you have to sacrifice certain things. So now, let's take your sleep score. Basically, we do an exercise right now with me. Basically, there are two ways. You have your sleep score. The first one is the aura ring. Like there's a ring you carry. Like I don't have the ring right now because we live in a third world country. We live in a third world country, and $200, $300 is like expensive, like really expensive in Nigeria, whatever. There's a second option, which is there'll be a link in the description. There'll be is a link to an NHS. Like it's completely free. You can try it. It's about 8 questions, I think, to answer. And I got a sleep score about 22 out of like a total of 32. The sleep, my own sleep is okay, but I want my own sleep to be good or very, very good. So you can comment your scores in the comments. You might have a higher score than me, you might have a lesser score than me. The good news is that you can make progress, and I will share my own score by the end of the video. This is not gonna be like a dopamine video or whatever. This is probably gonna be long, however long this video will be. Sit comfortably. This video deserves a full attention, so take a pen and a paper as I present you the sleep full guide. Enjoy the video. So now let's cover why does sleep feels like the hardest thing to fix. And there are actually 5 reasons for that. The first reason is that if you observe the caveman days, like the olden days, like 0, 0, the olden days, they have one sun, one moon. Fast forward 10 years ago, 10 years later, they still have one sun, one moon. Even in the industrial revolution, they still have one sun, one moon. In this day and age, you have two sun and one moon. And then there's a natural sun, whatever. There's a natural sun, the solar system, this natural sun. And then there's a second sun which we put in our pockets. You guess that right? The phone. There's the blue light. You constantly getting the blue light on the screen, and that affects our brain. The brain normally like this, they do like circadian rhythm. I'll cover all these details like in the video. Is essentially a circadian rhythm. Your brain literally is like this daylight sensor. With the sun, like all the light in the sun, your brain understands that this is the daytime. And at night when you use your phone, the brain still does not understand that this is actually a nighttime, so it keeps you more active, whatever. You might think like, okay, so what's the problem like having blue light in our eyes, whatever? It actually affects you. And actually, when I was young, about when I was like 14 years of age, I have my eyesight normally. Like I don't have like bad eyesight actually. My eyesight, I got a problem with my eyesight, and basically I don't have a phone at that time. I usually used to sleep 9, 10, 9, 10, whatever I was sleep. And then when I was 14, 15 years of age, my mom was using her phone, whatever. I would sneak into the bed and I would carry the phone. Sometimes like she would lock it and then I would just gently put her fingerprint, I would lock the phone, whatever. I used to like around 2 a.m. naturally I wake up around 2 a.m. I would look at the screen every single day, watching videos or playing games, whatever. To the point that I actually saw my eyesight start to reduce. And in the past I can read everything like from a very far distance, but this day it's not like as strong. And I'm making progress to kind of fix my eyesight. It's not like totally I cannot see, I can see everything, but I don't have the same level of eyesight strength as I had a few years ago. So I'm warning you, like, no, like, this is a serious problem. The second one, which is a psychological phenomenon, which is called revenge bedtime procrastination. Throughout the day, like we have like a chaotic, when a person have like a chaotic day, whatever, you don't have much control over your daytime and all this chaos, whatever, all these things. There's the work, there's a school, there's all these things. So constantly you feel constantly psychologically you feel you are giving too much. You don't have the only time, and at night that's the only time people don't ask from you. So like kind of that's the only time you kind of have, and so you kind of just unintentionally subconsciously just stare at your phone, whatever, at the bed, whatever. The third reason is actually the hardest reason of all, which is the dopamine trap. Dopamine is like essentially like this. I will not call it. I don't know what it's called, like a molecule of a chemical, whatever. The brain extracts everything. Like there's a normal average of it. So throughout the history of human existence, like there are times it peaks actually, but it peaks in a natural, slow way. For example, when you did hard work, for example, like during school, maybe you studied for exams really, really hard and you scored everything and you get a dopamine high. But these days, instantly when you just like, for example, you feel anxious or you feel bored, you just kind of open your phone and play video games, or whatever, instantly you get the same high. But the problem, because it instantly became high, it will instantly go low again. After you get all the things you wanted, it goes below baseline. So your brain craves that same level of high again. So every single time, that's why you are be like, you know that this is bad for you, but in bedtime, you naturally you have like a lower willpower, whatever. During bed, you just try as much as you keep your phone, but naturally you get the same craving for that phone again, whatever, and do all these things. This is the dopamine trap. The fourth reason is the cognitive load, which is also like the mental exhaustion. And in human history, actually, like all you can do on research from the beginning time of men, from the beginning times all the way to now, the physical exhaustion is at the lowest possible. This is someone can stay in bed throughout the day. So the physical exhaustion is very, very low, but the mental exhaustion is so high to the point that constantly you are getting this notification from your boss, from your school, whatever, all these things. And there was actually a funny story. There was a time we go to school, whatever, we have like this statistics lectures, and the lecturer kind of explained, and I was sitting in class, I was not able to understand because I had like terrible sleep, whatever. Basically, after the class ended, he said he's gonna send an assignment for us. Like I have a consistent bedtime, whatever. 10 p.m. I'm asleep. Very rarely you see me like 11, 12, whatever, but most of the time 10 p.m. I'm in bed. And that day I actually slept early. I woke up the next day, I did my exercise, I did my Quran, whatever. It was time for my deep work. And actually turned on my internet to like kind of research whatever to like what. And during my before like just before my deep work, I got this idea to like just check my phone. And this is not actually most of the time this idea is actually a bad idea, whatever. I just entered the WhatsApp and I saw an announcement in the group. Apparently there was an assignment to be submitted tomorrow, 10 a.m. The message was sent 11 p.m. at night, the previous night, and it was around 9:30. It was time for my deep work. So like the commute from my house to this lecture theater, whatever, is like about 40 minutes of commute. Imagine, and it was 9:30, and it was to be submitted on 10. So I was like kind of anxious, whatever. But actually trust, and like most of the time these days, like these things, you might kind of get anxious. But if you observe that, this is not really a problem. I got anxious, whatever. I like kind of rush everything, and I realized that the assignment was to be submitted from 10 a.m. all the way to 3 a.m. So, side point. So as you can see from this story, like I said, people like I don't know for some reason that even the university or whatever, they don't want people to have good sleep. That is why I said to be able to fix your sleep, you have to fight every single person. It's gonna be difficult. Imagine that sending the assignment around 11 p.m. at night. Like imagine the student people these days don't want people to sleep. You'll be having like constant whatever all this at night. So for you to be sleeping at like early night is a bit of a sacrifice you have to make. The fifth thing actually is the environment we live in. There are so many like conditions that the environment like makes our sleep like very very bad. Like for example, the temperature, whatever. In the olden days, if you observe, like people they sleep. For example, like their windows are on or open, like getting breeze, whatever. But these days will kind of lock every single place. And if you have an air conditioner, whatever, for you to be able to sleep, you have to reduce the temperature. There's a sleep consistency. People these days, I don't know why. There's a 95 worker. For example, you have like from the weekdays, Monday to Friday. Monday to Friday, he has, like, for example, he sleeps 12 p.m. and wake up like 7, probably 4, 5, whatever. Some people even sleep like 2 or whatever. All this is side points. But in weekends, like for some reason, the wake up and the sleep time is so different from the work days. Why is that? Everything needs to be. I have to have the same bedtime. Everything sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time every single day. But for some reason, like there's a weekend and there's like this Mondays to Fridays. So like this sleep consistency. Actually, how do you expect to get a good sleep without having all this sleep consistency? And the third thing, actually, like there's so many stimulants these days, like for example caffeine and all this high sugar whatever. And I don't blame you because like there was a time my sister actually came back and she had like this all this like chocolate whatever. Most of the time it's like during that night time like she's exhausted already whatever, so she'll take like chocolate whatever all these things at night. And naturally like you kind of want to eat that all these things, but try to avoid actually caffeine, high sugar, all these things. Avoid all like sleep at night time is the time for you to like rest, unwind and everything. It's a quiet time, it's a peaceful time. You're not supposed to engage in all these activities, engage in all this food or whatever, all these things. Let your brain rest. They have been working the whole day. Let your brain rest. So there's all these stimulants, whatever, all these things. Try as much as you can to get rid of it. So in this section of the guide, we're gonna cover the history of sleep. We're gonna divide sleep into 4 stages. The first is which is the hunter-gatherer era, and then we'll move to the agricultural era. We'll move to the industrial revolution and then to the modern times. To best understand all these stages, we must first understand the sleep patterns we human beings use. There are 3 patterns. The first is actually monophasic sleep, which is one long block. Basically, a person just goes out of this world. You sleep for 8, 9, 10 hours and then just one block. The second, which is the biphasic sleep. Biphasic simply means 2 phases. Basically, the person sleeps, for example, for like 5, 6 hours and then wakes up, do certain things, talk, whatever, work, and then go back to sleep twice in the 24 hours. The third pattern is actually the polyphasic sleep, which is very interesting because these days most people don't even do the polyphasic sleep, but I would show you like almost all history, like they use the polyphasic sleep. Basically, polyphasic sleep is basically you sleeping in more than two blocks. You sleep first block, second block, third block, whatever, above from three and above. That's polyphasic sleep. And now let's discuss the hunter-gatherer era. This is like 99% of human history, all the way to like 10,000 years ago. In that during that time, like during like the caveman, they sleep like around campfires, whatever. They just place their like skin or like leaves, whatever, and just sleep like that. And what's interesting is that these people in the caveman days or the hunter-gatherer era, they sleep less than we do. Research shows us that they sleep about 6 hours, but they have like a higher quality of sleep than we do these days. So basically, they sleep, and also like in the past, it's not like safe. Like you have to be watching out for like predators, whatever, all these things. So they kind of sleep, but they kind of wake up in the middle of the night to kind of do certain things, and sometimes they take shifts to kind of protect their family and all these things. And it's very very interesting actually. Compared to the modern days, we live in a very safe. I won't call it like safe is like an understatement, whatever. Like this world is dangerous, all these things. But in the past, like you can be sleeping and there's a snake that will come and like enter into your cave, whatever. Scorpions, all these things. But these days we are completely safe from all these things. So and all that, just it completely like aligns perfectly with like human, know the nature, whatever. Because like they don't have like the light bulbs, whatever, all these things. So due to like temperature rise and fall, they understand like that this is the time for sleep, and also like circadian when the sun is down, everyone understands that this is the time for sleep. So now we're gonna move to the second phase or the second stage, rather, which is called the agriculture era. This is about 10,000 years all the way to like 700, 1700s. During that time, actually, the biphasic sleep, which is the two stages, the two sleep blocks. This is actually like the norm at that stage, because normally like they will sleep relatively early, whatever. They would wake up around 1 a.m. and that time like they do their creative stuff, all these things like they read, they even like some people like in the agriculture era, they even visit neighbors at that time. That was like the normal everything like it was the norm, and probably like about after like 2 3 hours and they go back to sleep again. And then there's a third stage, which is the great shift, and that is the industrial revolution. During like the 1800s, there was this thing called gas lighting. Okay, like there's like it's it's lit environments. So like it's the beginning of the like this is the beginning of this like artificial lighting until in 1879, which brought the light bulb. This one shift in human history actually completely it began the suffering of disease like sleeping, because the light bulb actually the light it was not for like all of human history there was no light bulb up until 1879. The circadian rhythm, it basically is like a human clock in our brain. Okay, and I'll explain it in detail, but just think about like a human clock. It's instead of like 1 2 3 4 whatever, and the clock is like the night and the daytime, like levels, like say, let's say. And this light bulb actually interferes with this natural circadian rhythm which have been in human beings for over for all the years, basically from the first person as all the late 1879 up to now. In fact, this circadian rhythm is there, and this light bulb actually interferes with that. And that was the time we actually lost the mid sleep. Basically, like I said, like in the past day, normally by 12 1 2 p.m, all everyone is like most people like they are awake. But these days, like we lost that because of the light bulb that came in. Actually, the thing is that from that point, people like used to work 12 hours days, whatever, even children. So everyone was like so exhausted. The physical exhaustion was very, very high and all these things. And now is the time for the modern times from the 1950 all the way to now. In human history, there was no, like, this is the worst time for sleep in human history. Basically, we have 24 hours electricity. We have like 24/7. Someone can keep his light bulb on 24/7. Like also, the internet these days, like doom scrolling, parties, all these things. We have all these things in this day and age. It's also called the digital age. That's when most people are chronically sleep deprived. People these days sleep food in the past. If a person like does not sleep past like 9, 10, 11 p.m., people like seems to seem like, what is this important thing you should do? Like for example, if a person, for example, if I was in the previous era, if you see me like 11 p.m., I'll be probably all like studying for my like my school, whatever. Like I have something important to do. That's why I'm not sleeping. But these days, someone can just stay up on his phone from 6 p.m. at night all the way till 6 a.m. using his phone. If you ask him what were you doing with the phone, nothing. I'm just scrolling. I'm just playing video games. I'm just. Do you see how weak we have been these days? Like you know this. I don't need to explain them modern times to you. You know this. I'm almost like I'm not in fault. Whatever. All these things. I know myself. There were periods of my life in the past where I used to like scroll to the point that I actually, like I said in the video, my eyesight used to reduce. And like this is like the norm. We have to break this. Like I said, this is the hardest thing to do. We have to break that. Sleep, like I said, is the most important part of that. It's the most important thing in your human body. So now we're gonna cover the phases of sleep. We cover the sleep patterns. Now is to understand the phases of sleep, because I mentioned the polyphasic sleep, like more than one sleep blocks. And there were certain methods, like I don't know, was it the woman method or like whatever? They sleep like six chunks of like 20 minutes blocks, whatever, throughout the day. And actually, the thing I don't really recommend that, but it's actually possible. But I don't really recommend that. People like the what's his name, Da Vinci, whatever. That will like is spending whatever all these things. He used to have that sleep. Like people, many people like they have the kind of sleep, but let's just discuss the phases of sleep. Basically, I divided the phases of sleep into non-REM and the REM sleep. REM really stands for like rapid eye movements. The non-REM actually is divided into three as well. To branch out to three categories. The first is the N1, which is the light sleep. The second, which is the N2, which is the stable sleep. And the third, which is the N3, which is also the deep sleep. And then we'll bring the REM sleep. So now let's discuss the first sleep, which is the N1, which is also called the light sleep. When you just close your eyes to sleep at night, within the first 5 minutes, at first you might feel blank, but you start to have like these imaginary things. So for example, when you just sleep, you just start to imagine some things. That's when the N1 sleep is actually there. And basically, sometimes, like for example, you'll be awake, you'll be sitting down. For example, if you're watching TV, television, whatever, someone might pass in front of you, might not notice because your eyes was actually asleep, but your brain was actually on. What I want you to understand is that this first stage is actually the stage whereby people will say you are sleeping, but you deny it because you think you're not asleep, but you're actually asleep. That's the first step. And then there's the N2, which the heart rate starts to reduce, the temperature starts to reduce as well. That's the stage whereby you have started to enter sleep. You are sleeping, but if a person just physical contact actually can wake you up. When just touch you, you wake up, all these things. And then there's the N3, which is the most interesting thing, deep sleep. That's when like you kind of restore the physical restoration. When you're tired, you're exhausted, all these things, the N3 would help because that's when you actually replenish all the energy you have, the physical energy. And then there's the REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movements. It's also known as like the sleep states. This is basically like you sleep and you start to dream about something. Sometimes you dream, but you kind of forget. And in the past, I remember I was like intrigued with the name rapid eye movement. I was like, what is this rapid eye movement? And there was a research actually. It was his name Eugene. He was making a research, and then he found his son actually. And his son was sleeping, and there was a time of the day, of the night, the sun eyes was moving left to right, and he described his son was like it was as if you were playing a game of tennis, just like the ball left or like right, left, whatever, like this. Sometimes it moves up and down. Literally, like look at someone sleeping at that REM sleep, you see his eyes moving left, right, smooth, fast. And I was kind of intrigued, like, wow, so this is how happened basically. That's the type of. And actually, I had a problem in the past, and I actually did an experiment, and I'm happy to share this experiment with you. I tried what is called the 90-minute rule. Basically, in the past, the problem I had, I can sleep very, very fast. For example, when I'm so tired, within a minute I'll sleep. But when I'm like normal energy, whatever, I just come to bed and within 5 minutes. I don't usually used to take a long. People used to take like 30 minutes for some certain people, but for me, like 5 minutes, I'm like asleep. The problem I had was not the getting sleep. The problem I had was wakefulness, to wake up, because I wanted to do tahajjud and all these things. I actually implemented a rule like just a few weeks ago. I actually saw it. Basically, you set an alarm because the sleep cycle. Like I forgot to mention, the sleep cycle actually is like our 90-minute blocks, 90 minutes. So basically, like for example, from 9 p.m. all the way to 10:30, the first sleep block is on. I need to repeat the cycle, but in the first part of the night, the body would actually prioritize that deep sleep. For example, if you sleep from 8 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever, all the way to like 12:1, it will prioritize the deep sleep because there will be a lot of chunks of like deep sleep. That is why, like, if you observe, like towards the last part of the night, that's when you start to dream. You remember all your dreams, whatever, and then from like 12:1, and that the rest is actually the REM sleep, which is the mind. It's the kind of the mind restoration. Just like I said, the deep sleep is for the physical restoration, the REM sleep is for the mental, the mind restoration. And actually, like I said, the problem is wake up. So basically, you put an alarm 90 minutes. I would put an alarm 90 minutes, but I would wake up feeling groggy. Number one. Number two, I would not even listen hear the alarm. Who will come off it from the until I realize is that what they mean about the 90 minutes is not from the point you get to bed. Like there's a book, and I'll use this book to kind of structure this book. Whatever. It's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. In this book, he mentioned that hours in bed is not the same as hours asleep. Understand? So I started to understand. Okay, I would, since I sleep within 5 minutes, I would increase 5 to 10 minutes before the time. So for example, if I said I would wake up 90 minutes, I would put an alarm 10 minutes before that. So I'll put an extra additional buffer 10 minutes. So basically, like for example, like last night, even last night, I even practiced that. I slept around 10 p.m. I set an alarm after 3 cycles to wake up, which is around 4.5 hours. I added extra 10 minutes to that, and I woke up feeling refreshed completely. The problem is that I used to wake up at the middle of either the deep sleep or the REM sleep. I don't used to usually leave the cycle to finish. And when I wake up from that deep sleep, you will feel so groggy, like even if you want to do Tahajjud, you will not feel like that. And actually, you can try that. Put a time, like put a buffer time, for example, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. But don't put the buffer time like 30 minutes because you can enter, like you can start a new cycle, which is very, very bad. Put the alarm, but however long you want. If you want 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles, 4 cycles, whatever, put all that. Calculate an extra, put an extra additional buffer time. That's not how you wake up. You actually wake up very, very good. In this section of the guide, we're gonna cover the research on sleep. We're gonna cover the research on bad sleep, and we're gonna cover the research on good sleep. Let's take this YouTuber for example, Nadang Hyung. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. This YouTuber, he has over 1.4 million subscribers. And just 2 days before his death, he mentions that he was struggling with sleep deprivation. He was chronically sleep deprived. And there's an article that wrote, and in the article it mentions that it linked everything, all his death. He died when he was sleeping. It linked everything all the way to his sleep deprivation state. I want you to really think about this. A YouTuber, 1.4 million subscribers. He was known for his like long hours and like late nights. He died because of sleep deprivation. Die. Yeah. There's so many examples like that. Let's take Carrie Fisher for example. Died because of what? Cardiac arrest, sleep apnea. So many examples. So many. There is Roger White, an NFL player, 2004. James Gandolfini, John Candy, Bapi Lalin, all many of them, they have like this heart complication because of what? Sleep. See, this is the most fascinating research actually I found, which is that I wanted to really, before I explain to you, I wanted to really imagine. You have, in example, you want to go to work, school, whatever, and there's this Uber driver who was, you saw him in a drunken state. Like he cannot even open the door very well. He had to fall down to open the door very well. Will you actually enter? Will you trust this driver to take you to work? Of course not. Of course not. And what's fascinating is that we all know that a drunk driver is not, it's not allowed. Like there should be signs, like like this is common sense. We know that, but for some reason they trust drowsy drivers. And there was actually a research that found that drowsy drivers actually is worse than a drunk driver. Yeah, people that don't that are stay awake for like 20 to 24 hours awake is worse than a drunk driver. And there was actually research that found that over 6,000 drowsy driving deaths in the UK, in the United States alone in 2023. That's about 70 to 80% of the fatal issues, the car crashes, whatever, that involve drowsy drivers. Imagine that 6,000 cases of that. You cannot like just willpower your biology, whatever. No, the brain keeps begging you to give it what it wants. Your brain needs sleep, but for some reason people just let go of that and think of it like this. I don't care about the sleep. When the brain keeps begging you for these things, it actually just get what it wants. Just actually put what it wants through, and that's why it actually just like puts you into what is called like a micro sleep. Imagine that. And I don't want this video to be like a scary video, and for some reason, unfortunately, these days we are more motivated from fear at death, whatever. But I will give you hope, because when you start to fix your sleep, and hopefully after watching this video, you're gonna fix your sleep. And there are so many benefits that if I were to create an entire video on just the benefit of sleep, it would be longer than this video, however long this video would be. Brain's lymphatic system is like it will flush out all the metabolic waste in you. Like there's a beta amyloid, whatever. It flushes out throughout the day. When you have a good sleep, it flushes out, and that is why you'll be able to focus on the next day. You'll be able to have clear focus around all these things, and all because of sleep. So no matter how you try to like be productive, whatever, if you don't have sleep, you are lagging behind. The second thing, your brain doesn't actually learn when you're studying, for example, a course, whatever. When you're studying that, your brain doesn't actually learn from that. It actually learns from your sleep. When you sleep, especially like in the N3, like we mentioned, the deep sleep and the rapid eye, that's when your brain just pulls everything out from your short-term memory all the way to your long-term memory. So trying to memorize, especially like for example, us that try to memorize Quran, I'll highly advise you, sleep is very, very important, because memorization relies on what's called the hippocampus part of the brain. This part of the brain, in fact, all the part of the brain, when you have inadequate sleep, it actually reduces. It does not work at its maximum potential, whatever. Try as much as you can to get adequate sleep. The third benefits of good sleep: when you're sleeping, that's when your growth hormone, your brain releases the growth hormone in your body. When you want to build muscle, whatever, you want to recover from like a gym workout, whatever. In fact, even when you're sick, like that is why if you observe, like when you work train really hard, you need more sleep. That's why athletes, like they need a lot of sleep. The growth hormone. You cannot just build muscle like sleep deprivation. No, that's not. And also like there's this, and there's two hormones, like actually there's this hormone called leptin, and there's this hormone called ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that tells you like you're full. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells you that you're starving or you're hungry. When you sleep, it actually balances that. And when you actually don't sleep, that's why you observe that when you're like you do not have enough sleep, you get to eat more, you get to graze more, you get to feast more. You eat a lot of things like because, and that's why like you see obese people or whatever. Like I mentioned, the chronic sleep deprivation is everywhere. When you start sleep, it actually balances all that. That is why you eat. You will not eat much, and you will actually be full. That is why if you observe the Prophet ﷺ, the best example, and for us what's fascinating was that the best of examples, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it's mentioned that he doesn't eat much, and his sleep was dialing like. The fourth benefits I found was that there's these two parts of the brain. This part of the brain is called the amygdala, and this part of the brain is called prefrontal cortex. This is actually the emotional, like fight or flight part of the brain, and this is the logical thinking part of the brain, the long-term thinking part of the brain. When the thing that normally what we want is this part of the brain to be stronger than this part of the brain, but these days for some reason it's the other way around. Why? Poor sleep. When you start to sleep correctly, when you used to sleep like more sleep, whatever, this part of the brain starts to outwork this part of the brain, and that's what we want, because this part of the brain is the, or how will I call it? Like I said, the emotional part of the brain. That is why it will be very, very hard, difficult to annoy you. Like it will, like you'll be so much more happier, whatever. You will not get angry easily. Look at the example again, the Prophet ﷺ. Really, when something like, in fact, for him, he will not get angry. No matter how much you do, for him, he will not get angry. And when you actually do something for like the deen or whatever, that's when he will get angry. Because, like for example, like you cannot just insult Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he will be happy with that. No. And there are some people like they label themselves like, I am an angry person. Yeah, you don't have enough sleep. Or they label themselves like, when I get angry, I don't want anyone to speak to me. Or like people like this. And when you actually dial your sleep, and actually in my life, I observed like in the past when like I mentioned in the past, around 14, 15 years of age, I was having like 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep. And in fact, the sleep is like messed up. I will sleep. I'm looking at the phone, whatever. And I wake up in the middle of the night, look at the phone, whatever. I actually started to develop this like angry state. I easily get offended. I easily get angry at that time. And if you know me, you know me with this. For a while, I was like, normally I'm like this quiet, whatever. I'm like patient, whatever. But when you know me, I easily just get annoyed. And now looking back, I realized that it's because of I had like poor sleep. And after that, I started to like fix my sleep. I started to have like more sleep, whatever. I started naturally there are people like that. Like, don't get me wrong, there are people like this, but it will actually help when you have good sleep. The prefrontal cortex rises, and the prefrontal cortex becomes stronger, and the amygdala becomes weaker. Now, the section of the guide we've been waiting for is the debate between greatness and sleep. People they divide into two. Some people say to be great, you have to sacrifice sleep. We know this, and I will not actually deny this. And there are many figures in the past, like for example, Thomas Edison, who was sleeping for 5 hours a day. Nikola Tesla, who was sleeping 2 hours a day. Leonardo da Vinci, who was sleeping 20 minutes every 4 hours. Napoleon Bonaparte, and I don't know how to speak these names, whatever. Was sleeping like he said. There was a funny quote. He said, 6 hours for a man, 7 hours for a woman, 8 hours for a fool. I understand. But for every Thomas Edison, there was Albert Einstein. Why does people don't talk about him? And you know these people, like it's very, very difficult for you not to know Albert Einstein and all the things he have achieved in his life. Albert Einstein, he sleeps for 10 hours a day. Jeff Bezos, 8 hours a day. LeBron James, 12 hours a day. Nobody talk about these people. They only talk about these few people like we know that there are some people that are able to generate with a short amount of sleep. And I'm not denying this. Even in Islam, that there's so many people that in the past Islamic great names that were sleep deprived, whatever. Actually, the best example I can bring to you, again, it is the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in the book that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sleeps 8 hours. And actually, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he achieved what no man can be able to achieve. He achieved in just 23 years of his da'wah, whatever, of his prophethood. Just 23 years, he was able to change the entire Muslim world, the entire world, in just not just a part of the world. Like for example, people talking about Alexander the Great, was just about the entire world was conquered by Prophet. Every single day, Islam is spreading to every single part of the globe because of who? The Prophet. And he has prioritized his sleep. Even there was a hadith, the Prophet, he says, he basically mentions that the body is an amana. Imagine that, sleeping 4 5 hours a day, and you think this is body, like you're interested with these things. When you die, you leave the body in this world. Talk about you can train your sleep. Of course not. That's totally false. That's not true. You can train your sleep. Okay. The best analogy I can give is that, can you train your phone battery to last 5 minutes longer? Of course not. Then why do you expect to train your sleep, to train your brain to need less sleep? No. And unfortunately, I see like many Muslim scholars, they say that you can train your sleep. No, 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 no. The Prophet, if you can train your sleep, the Prophet would have slept 1 hour a day, but he slept 8 hours a day. He sleeps a third of a night, a day and night. The Prophet, I get your point. You look up to these people and you want to be like these kind of people. But you have to understand this actually. There's this quote which has been circling around, which is, do as I say, but don't do what I do. There are certain people that they sleep less and they sacrifice everything for themselves. Allah, whatever. Try to prioritize sleep. I really emphasize this, and all the people that are telling you this, they sleep 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever. They know the consequences, but they are not telling you to do this kind of things that they are doing. Of course not. They are not encouraging you to do all these things. Try to prioritize your sleep. I'm telling you, if you want to be great for a short period of while, then go ahead. Be great with less sleep. But if you want to be greater for a long amount of time, then you have to prioritize your sleep. And actually, this debates, in the past, I was in the side of this people who need like less sleep, whatever. Until actually there was a Quran competition, whatever. People like in the Quran space, whatever, the health space, they say like, you just sacrifice your sleep, don't sleep at all, just recite Quran, memorize whatever, all these things. And I used to follow that for a while until I actually realized that to be able, in fact, to even memorize, like I mentioned, the hippocampus, whatever, you need to sleep. And I do understand your point. You might have busy day, you might not have a lot of time in the day, whatever. And there was actually a way I did it actually, like during the Quran competition I had a few months ago. At least in the prep, I was sleeping at night. You have to kind of stimulate the night time if you have to sleep in the daytime. Okay. What I did was the moment I come back after whatever, that's when I will sleep. And I will kind of block all the lights, whatever, from the entire room as much as I can. I will kind of put a blanket, whatever, just block everything, and then I'll go to sleep. It will kind of stimulate the part of the brain, because your brain actually, there's a circadian rhythm, like I mentioned. It uses light levels, whatever, and try to do that. And actually, there was a concern about people that are working night shift, whatever. They don't have any option but to sleep in the daytime. That's why I said just kind of stimulate the night time. But because if you're trying to stop yourself from sleep, and I mentioned about the chronic sleep deprivation, all these things. Let's take this animal for example. This cat. We love cats, whatever. If you deny a cat sleep, it will die within 3 days. All the animals, and for some reason, what's unfortunate is that we human beings are the creatures that, for some reason, intentionally we would wreck ourselves for sleep. We would deprive ourselves of sleep. What's very, very important that you just sleep. I don't understand. There will be days you will be having finish. You have a deadline, whatever, all these things. You can sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever I mentioned. But don't actually make it that your norm. You sleep 4 hours and you're energized. There's this long-term problem. Just remember, this body you have, this Your brain, whatever, is an amana to you. Take care of that. Give it the sleep it needs. It needs. Your life will be much better when you have a good sleep. So now we're gonna discuss why sleeping early is actually the hardest thing to do. And you watching this video to have like a great impact on you, and me making this video to have a much greater impact on me myself, because I know all the consequences. I am the one that research everything. I know all the consequences, the good and the bad things. And why I'm telling you this is because last night, I'll be open to you. Last night I actually scrolled my phone till around 12 p.m. Basically, what happened was that my friend came to me, like we already left the friend around 8:30. I'm gonna come back home, whatever. He came to me with like a great news, and we kind of have to discuss and fix this issue. We finished everything and we fixed it in about like an hour. He left back, and here's the problem. After he came back, and I was like, okay, I'm already past my time, and I need like about few minutes before like I sleep, whatever. I kind of start to cope, and I noticed, I don't know why I did that yesterday. I kind of started to cope, whatever, and before you know it, I started to message people on WhatsApp, whatever. I actually like message a lot of people, and before you know it was like I kind of watched video after video, and towards the end when I saw my phone is like 3%, I just said, okay, since my phone is like 3%, I'm just gonna watch videos until all the way to like the phone would die, whatever, and then I'll go to sleep. After that, actually, I sat down. Okay, like why am I doing this? I am the creator myself. Why am I doing this? I actually wrote in my journal, whatever. I know the consequences of this thing. Now, why am I doing that? And I kind of realized that most people are actually struggling with this, and I kind of had to dip myself into it, come out and kind of explain to you how it feels and how to actually fix that. And actually, I found some methods. Some of them I actually implemented. Like I realized I implemented it a long time ago. Some of those things I might find it completely new. So I'm gonna teach you these 4 things. The first thing is actually what psychology call protege effect. Basically, it means that uh, when you're teaching someone, or when you want to master something, you want to master a skill, you want to like deeply ingrain this thing, you want to memorize this thing so like proficiently, whatever. The best way for it to stick or for you to internalize it is by teaching it, and you basically turn your brain in from a student brain to a teacher brain. And by doing that, you would kind of understand the thing better. Just like I'm making these kind of videos, like I said, I will have this better understanding on this topic because I am teaching it to you. And most YouTubers will just tell you, share this video to like a friend, and then like 10 of the friends would impact and it will help me like win. No, of course not. People telling you this thing, they know that they don't even know the friends they're talking about. You just say share the video and like that's it. The creator get the reward and the friends don't get it. I will not teach you this thing. I'm not gonna do that. My advice actually would be that instead of doing that, learn these things first, implement it, put it into practice, and then share all the principles I gave you to your friend, hype it up, show him like the benefits of all these things, teach it to him, like kind of explain everything like I'm doing it to you. I'm trying to explain it to the best possible to my best abilities, and that's the same thing you're gonna do. And by doing that, your brain just turn into like a teacher, because you have to understand this thing. You have to like bring it out from your brain, whatever teaching that person. You have to kind of synthesize it to the way that specific to this person, and that's when your brain kind of understands this thing better. Before making this full guide, my bedtime was actually consistent, but it was not like very consistent. It was like kind of up and down. Sometimes I would sleep 9, sometimes 11, whatever. It was kind of somehow, but when I started creating this full guide, it had a great impact on me. That's why I was like shocked that I even did that yesterday. Like basically, just teach this thing to a friend. If that friend of yours or your family members asks you to share the video, then you can do that. Fair enough. But actually, like one person implementing this is much better, and I'll feel much more happier if I like say for example I saw like a comment of that person like, oh hey, you really helped me with this thing, I was struggling with this or whatever. I'll be so happy with that, rather than sharing this. I'm like seeing like 20 shares and like nobody like implement that. I don't like that. Like I said, implement it yourself. Don't just teach it, because when you teach it and you don't implement it, it's a problem. Implement it first, teach it to your friend, hype it up to him, give him some hope. like I'm doing this, like the same way I'm doing this to you. The Protege effect. The second actually is what's called cognitive dissonance. Normally, the cognitive dissonance is like a bad thing, okay? But we're gonna use it to our advantage. Basically, when you tell someone, and here's the difference between the first one and second. The first one you have to explain and teach it. This one you're just simply telling them. You tell someone about it, and you did not do that thing. You kind of feel like this guilt, whatever. You will start to feel this guilt actually, and here's an interesting part. Your brain will try to get rid of this negative emotion. Do you understand? So to get rid of this negative emotion, your brain is gonna follow two ways. The first, basically, the brain will convince you to stop sharing this information around completely, like stop telling people about it. When you actually follow that method, and that's not like a good, that's a bad thing. But when you just follow, when you sleep and follow this thing, it will reduce the pain. But those people in the past that you already told them, it will keep bringing back this discomfort, and the brain will try to like do that. And when it tries to remove that, it was able to like finally fix it. It will use the second method, which naturally just let you go, and then you'll be able to sleep. Doesn't. So my point is that when you tell people about it, you kind of, your brain starts to feel bad about it. I only started to feel bad. I wasn't able to fix that. It naturally leaves you to kind of get to sleep as early as possible. The third thing is what I call ownership of time. What I observe is that most people, like it can be even you and me, they look at sleep as like a chore, like a thing that they must do. But you need to like shift this identity. But that's the reason I call it ownership. When you just shift this identity, like for me, I'm a YouTuber. When you start telling your brain, instead of saying I have to sleep, start saying I need this energy to do deep work, to do tahajjud, to do this thing. Give it a purpose and a reason to that. In my own scenario, actually, I would say I need this energy to help people to do my deep work. I need this energy to do my deep work, to do my tahajjud. When you start giving it a meaning and purpose to it, your brain starts to understand. Okay, like, you're not gonna suffer for it. There's a benefit to it. They kind of understand. Okay, if and like even like yesterday that I was scrolling, like in my mind, like part of my brain was like, you're not supposed to do this thing. You know, you're gonna don't affect your YouTube, whatever. Just do that, and when you do that, actually, you kind of understand, and then it will be like kind of, it will reduce that shackle, that all these chains, whatever that's stopping you from sleeping. And the fourth tactic, and this is my favorite tactic, this is mentioned by the author of this book, Atomic Habits. The author, James Clear, he mentioned that this method is called pointing and calling. In this book, he mentions like there was a Japanese railway conductor, basically, and that railway conductor, he brought out like a method. Basically, like for example, like drivers, people like kind of just subconscious. They have been doing this thing for years, so like they have built complete memory, whatever. When you're pointing out on something and calling out, it actually forces conscious interruption. It will remove you from like so this memory. You kind of understand. Okay, you kind of get out of that, and you'll be able to think. For example, if like the train, whatever, this light is green, this light is red. Just point it and speak to it, and you might think like, how can this like be implemented in our full guide, whatever, in this sleep? And here's the interesting part. Atomic Habit didn't just explain that; he also gave us a formula to do that. The formula is, I am about to do X, and if I do it, it will result in Y. And X is the action, Y is the consequence. Let's take, for example, I am about to scroll my phone, and if I do that, I would not be able to have the energy to do the deep work the next day. When you point out and when you like speak it out loud, your brain needs to hear that, because like normally you can just ignore these thoughts in your brain. Like when it's inside your brain, nobody hears you, kind of ignore that, and you know that this is bad, but you kind of sleep, whatever. But when you speak it out loud, your ears need to hear these things. Like you need to hear. Do you think like had I implemented that yesterday, I would have guaranteed I would sleep. And most 99% of the times, you will not do that bad thing. And people use that so many things to kind of quit these like long term habits, whatever. point it out, speak it out loud, and I will take you a step further. For example, if you're like in your living room with like your family members, whatever, say it in front of them. I get like thinking about saying that you're not gonna do that at all. If you persist on doing that, say it out loud in front of them. I'm about to do this thing, and I know it's bad for me, but I keep on doing it because I'm a retard, I'm a fool, whatever. You're not gonna do that. I guarantee you're not gonna do that. I would recommend the first and the fourth method, which is like more powerful than the rest. But I really just implement all this four. I guarantee you, would at least it will ease like 85% of the problem of sleeping early, even 100%. Implement that, and I'm speaking from like personal experience from this. I tried all these things before I was able to like kind of understand. When you do that, you kind of reduce all the chains, whatever, all these things, and then you can start focus on the dopamine, whatever, the method, the beginning part of the video I mentioned, like all the environmental factors, whatever. These are the like kind of 4 pillars for these things. Implement all these things, and I guarantee you to help you for this thing. And actually, there was a lesson I learned yesterday. Like I said, I was journaling these things, and I kind of understand that there was this thoughts, this coping belief. These thoughts actually, I said to myself, okay, since my phone is like 1%, I'm gonna scroll. Since my phone is like 3%, I'm gonna scroll until the phone to die anyway. This actually like might sound harmless at first, but this is what people like call it like thought X, whatever. These thoughts, that will be like the first disease that will kind of spread all the way, like this virus, to kind of spread everywhere. Wage war against this belief. And I have like so many journeys, right, where this kind of belief wrecked me. For example, like in the my Tahajjud full guide, you can click on the screen. This full guide I mentioned, like there was a story of just similar thoughts came to me. Remember, my mom was telling me to like remove my voice for like recitation, whatever. I just coped like I'm not gonna do it anymore. And since I kind of coped and whatever, I said, since I'm disturbing them, I'm not gonna do that. And I started to cope whatever I can justify everything. These thoughts, get rid of that, because you only implement all this for you're gonna start sleeping early. But the problem is that these thoughts will come and haunt you. You have to wage war. Look out for these things, because it will come like, for example, like after a while you kind of start seeing the benefits, and then this thought creep in to tell you, yeah, don't do this thing, just do this thing. Like it will kind of show you, like it will act like like a genius, whatever. It will act like an Einstein, but actually it will destroy you. Do you understand? You kind of understand. This thought, it can be anything. Like for example, it can be for example, people like meditate before they sleep. Don't meditate, just sleep earlier. Right? This kind of thought, it will kind of ruin your routine at first. This kind of, to understand this thing, to be able to like recognize this, you see that you'll be able to like stop your routine, whatever. And if you observe you're stopping your routine because of this thing, this is the thought X. Get rid of that. Yeah. I got a new haircut. You like it? So now we're going to discuss one of the most controversial topics. In this part of the video, I would give you my argument why 10 hours of sleep is way too extreme. The idea of like 10 hours of sleep have been like popularized, I would say, by this author of this book, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker. And in the book, he mentioned the sleep efficiency, which means hours in bed is not the same as hours of sleep. So, for example, if you want to have like the 7 hours of sleep, you have to be in bed for 8 hours, 15 minutes, whatever. And people start getting the idea to sleep, to be in bed for like 10 hours. And actually, like reading this thing, and I actually like started saying like 10 hours of sleep, this is like way too much. And we're gonna approach it through with 3 different approaches. The first, which will be the logical approach, the scientific approach, and the religious approach. And hopefully by the end of all these 3 things, you'll be completely in my side. Why? Because let's start with the logical approach, because it does not make sense to be sleeping 10 hours a day. That's almost half of the day. Let's do some quick math, okay? In a 24 hours window, you will subtract 10 hours of sleep. How many hours will remain? 14 hours. And actually there will be an additional hour of preparing, like winding down, whatever. Remove that. That's how many hours left? 13 hours. And in those 13 hours, imagine someone will tell you they went to the gym for 3 hours, they recorded content, they walk to school, like it will not fit. Basically, it will not fit. Imagine 13 hours. That's how much. That's how 46% of your life. 13 hours left in the daytime. Imagine that compared to like the 8 hours, and that 8 hours you're having like 16 hours. Imagine like 13 hours. And let's try creating like a scenario. Okay, we're gonna have person A, a person B, and I would like to like assign them the names. Okay, person A is Fadil, person B Musa. Okay, let's say Fadil sleeps 10 hours a day and Musa sleeps 8 hours a day. Okay, let's give them a span of 10 years. Person A, let's say he sleeps 10 hours a day. Fadil sleeps 10 hours a day. Musa sleeps 7.5 hours a day. The gap is 2.5 hours. But if we give them a span of 10 years, Musa will be having 9,150 hours, or 9,125 hours. In that period, like if you kind of present this time frame, if you convert it into like a days, whatever, that's complete 24-hour days for over a year. Over a year gap of 24 hours, the complete 24 hours, no sleep, nothing. Just if, for example, he used the rest of the time to like study, whatever, that's 9,125 hours. And imagine like that's more than enough to learn like 3 languages. It's more than enough to like master a complex skill. 2.5 hours every day for like 10 years. And if you like look at the sleep efficiency, it's mostly like the same. In fact, this is even worse. And I would give you like as a third analogy, which is you probably had this like in economics or whatever. There's this law of diminishing returns. Basically, it says that the more inputs, it will reach a point whereby more inputs will not equal to more output. It will start to decrease. Basically, more inputs at first will be more outputs, but there will be a point whereby after I reach that point, more input will be less output. To kind of understand, imagine a person working 12 hours a day. You can kind of logically, it makes sense to like, okay, if I were to work 3 hours a day and he was to work 12 hours a day, he will produce more output than me, of course. But there's a law of diminishing returns. Why? Because after like he reached about 4 hours, whatever, he'll start to reduce the output. It will be he will still produce output, but it will be lesser quality. Lesser and lesser quality. And the same applies to sleep. If a person sleeps 10 hours, it like according to the CDC, it shows that the amount of sleep duration is like 7 to 9 hours. That's like the peak. So it's like this kind of this wave like this. At the peak is like 7 hours, and then it starts to reduce. And from that point, it's like you're getting sleep, but it's not like quality sleep because your brain cannot just be producing like deep sleep all over and over. No, of course not. The brain has like you cannot just say, okay, if I sleep 20 hours a day, I'll be able to work the next 14 hours. Oh no. That's not how the brain works. Like I mentioned, like the psychiatrist and whatever, the brain like we are not the first human beings on earth. There are people in the past like these days I don't know why to sleep for 10 hours is like way too much. Doesn't make this way too much. If this thing might not have confused you, this next will confuse you, which is the scientific approach. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine and also Sleep Research Society. These are like any sleep expert knows these things. These are like the Bible of the sleep. And they specifically recommend 7 to 9 hours of sleep for adults. They actually pointed out that sleeping above 9 hours on a regular basis It's not good. Unless for example, like a person like is sick or whatever, and when you're sick you're kind of recovering, and I also like sleep, when I sleep deprived you're kind of recovering whenever you can have 9 hours of sleep, but on a regular basis it's not really good for your health. Another study on the mortality risks of sleep, it shows like a U shape. It shows that sleeping 10 hours and above has a higher risk of heart disease. Also, Sleep Foundation mentions that sleeping above 10 hours or 10 hours plus are 21% more likely to be obese and have a higher chances of type 2 diabetes. So, like sleeping more than 10 hours, like I mentioned, 10 hours is like way too much. Okay, do you understand? It's way too much. And what's funny is that people quote elite athletes like LeBron James and also Roger Federer, and they say that these people sleep 10 to 12 hours a day. Yes, I do agree they do sleep 10 to 12 hours a day. But you really think about it, these people they spend 6 to 8 hours of physical destruction. They train their bodies for hours and hours and hours practicing the basketball, whatever. They spend hours and hours, like LeBron James spend hours, some people say 8 hours of basketball training, whatever. Physical is very very high. We these days don't have like even 10% of the physical exhaustion that those people have. What we do have is like the mental exhaustion. Like these days, like people scrolling their phone, whatever. There's the mental exhaustion is very very high. Imagine, it's not natural. Like imagine a person from 3,000 years ago. How will he get the latest trends these days? How will he understand the latest information? The only way a person can understand this information is like someone moves to a different town, comes to this town, and kind of share the information around, and everybody. That's how you kind of understand this. But this is your phone. It has information about this athlete, about this celebrity, about this specific country, and how this bomb kills, and all these things. Like it's just so unnatural. We're not meant to have this much information in our brains. If you kind of pause for a minute and like, if for example you scroll for like an hour, you might want to think, but in your mind you might think that I will probably watch like 10, 20 shots, whatever. No. I'm not sure, but there was a research I saw. There was a calculation we did in the past, which shows that on average a person clicks away within 6 to 12 seconds. Let's give it 5 seconds. Okay. Imagine every 5 seconds you swipe. Some people it's worse than this. And there was someone I saw before I was able to read the first word he scrolled. Let's say on average 5 seconds. Imagine that's how many swipes per minute. 12 per minute, not per minute. 12 in an hour. That's how much? 720 an hour. Not an hour. 720. Imagine people scrolling for 2 hours. In 2 hours, that's actually 1,440 different information in 2 hours. And that's what people consume on average these days. Per day. Per day. Do you think the brain, whatever information comes to the brain must process that? It must do that. Do you think you kind of, since you don't like the issue that your brain will forget? No. The brain it's just way too much for the brain to process that, and that is why the mental exhaustion is very very high. That is why it affects our sleep. It seriously affects our sleep. Imagine the average those 1,400. I don't know where I found it, but I saw it, and there was a time actually I was kind of researching for this thing, and I came across like Gemini giving me this answer, like saying that deep work actually help in sleep. And I was like, how can deep work help in sleep? What actually brought the other answer is that when you actually, like I'm doing that right now, I'm doing deep work, zero thoughts into my mind. I completely forget everything, just this thing. And when I'm recording like this, I stand up and say, no, I was in this thing and I'm recording. So when you're in deep work, you kind of force yourself to ignore complete distractions. It's actually, how will I say it? It's actually like it uses so much brain bandwidth, so much brain power onto just one thing, which is deep work. And during that deep work, your brain, like I'm doing right now, my brain starts to release what's called an ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And after I'm done, there will be adenosine will be reduced, will be remain. That's why have you observed after you finish deep work, that night you instantly go to sleep. You start the sleep pressure starts to add up. Imagine someone doing deep work for 4 hours a day. The moment he's in bed. But the problem is that most people they are not in deep work. They're not in deep work. They're in what's called shallow work. Shallow work basically means working with like the opposite of deep work. I'll say like distraction, whatever. Working and speaking to someone, working out, all this like shallow work. Scrolling is also considered as shallow work and all these things. So the brain's not it's like very exhausted, whatever. There's a difference. Like deep work, it actually parts of the brain focus on this thing and you start to recover after some time. But shallow work, it kind of disperses your attention all over everywhere. So after doing deep work, you'll be able to like sleep. And deep work, like it does not need to be like a YouTube like, recording with content. Like you can just Google the word deep work and you'll see like there's so many things. Just working without distractions. That's the basic thing. And if you want to take it to another level, there's a book, Deep Work by Carl Newport, and in the book he mentions two different definitions. One is the ability to master hard things quickly. The second is the ability to produce at an elite level. I was call it with high quality, whatever. I forgot the but the ability to produce high quality things, or high quality content, high quality work. That's deep work. And by doing that, you kind of build this sleep pressure, like I said. So now let's cover the religious approach. I'm a Muslim. My name is Irfan Girei. I'm a Muslim. You might be in different religion. You might be a Christian. You might be a Jew. Whatever, anything. I will not. I don't want to be like sound like biased, but I have to use that. The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the best model. I know you choose any of his like companions, specifically the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And also like the virtues of Islam. Imagine Aisha to Fajr time. That's how many hours. Let's use our own timings. Aisha is 7:30. Fajr is 5 a.m. From 7:30 all the way to 12 a.m. That's how much. That's how many hours. That's around like 4.5 hours, right? From 12 a.m. to all the way to 5. That's how many hours? 5 hours. So like 4.5, 5 hours. That's 9.5 hours. How do you expect me to do 10 hours of sleep? No. You have to sacrifice either the night, the Isha, or you have to wake up after the sun has risen, which is not one of the discipline of the believer. That's one. The second thing is that look at the Prophet ﷺ. He has the best sleep. Anyone like even all the sleep experts. I don't want them to like kind of bring all these sleep problems, whatever, like risk or whatever. Let them analyze the sleep of the Prophet ﷺ. Just mentioned in so many hadiths. He sleeps early. His sleep is very, very intentional. It is mentioned like he will sleep after Isha, basically. So, when you observe the older generation, whatever, you kind of understand he sleeps for the first 3 cycles. He will sleep all the way to the half of the night. And I did some calculations. I realized that he sleeps for the first part, which is 4.5 hours. And then he'll be in like long hours of Tahajjud. Like they say that 3 hours, 10.5 hours, whatever. And then he'll go back to sleep for an additional 1.5 hours. Another cycle again. Perfect cycles. That's how much? 6 hours. And then in the daytime, you would have this thing called the power nap. And the modern research shows us that 40 minutes of the power nap is better than 2 hours of sleep. So you can kind of have to do that. And when you do that, actually you have a better sleep than anyone sleeping 10 hours a day. All the sleep experts don't even start to like argue with me, whatever. Study the life of the Prophet. Study his sleep. His sleep is very, very intentional. Most people, how do they sleep these days? They doze out completely on their phone. Some people like I had this habit. I will kind of watching my video, and you don't know that I'm sleeping because my eyes were open. When you see me dropping the phone, okay, when you observe my phone drop, you see my eyes are closed. That's when I'm sleeping, and I'll be using the phone normally like this. The moment my hand drops, okay, I'm starting to get sleepy, and I've been having that habit for a while. And people they say like I don't need to tell you this. This is people have a very very bad sleep. The Prophet ﷺ, like you mentioned, the sleep is very intentional. He make dua, he recites the Quran, like he reminds himself of death and all these things. There are so many different du'as of that. All these things compromise and everything. You can kind of optimize everything as a Muslim. You realize that you don't need to have that much of sleep. Okay, try to be as more intentional with your sleep. The reason he sleeps is so that he will have the energy to do his tahajjud, and he also have the energy to do whatever. But people these days they sleep just because they want to sleep or they have to sleep. That's it. So you can make your own research. Okay, I don't need to do. You can make your own research. If you're not convinced, you can make your own research on the Prophet ﷺ, how he sleeps and everything. And I'm sure other Sahaba. I'm not. I'll do my own research as well. But I'm sure that other prophets they do sleep less. It's not that they will sleep very less. Minimum, they would have like a balance to it. He sleeps in moderation. He doesn't sleep too much. And there was a book by Ibn Qayyim. He mentions that the Prophet ﷺ sleep 8 hours. I'm still in my research. I want to figure out how the Prophet ﷺ sleep 8 hours. But I'll kind of I tried to read the book. I was not able to find the calculations, but I'm still asking for opinions or whatever to kind of understand how it's adds up to 8 hours. But this shows like a balance because there was a hadith specifically. The Prophet ﷺ says that this your body is an amana. It's a trust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to you. Take care of that and you collect it back. But if you keep on depriving yourself of sleep or you keep on giving way too much sleep to that, you're not doing this things with the world. Just sleep, 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 sleep. And that's why many people have like this sleep inertia, whatever, all those things. It's like way too much. And also like there are certain like I'm not saying that all 10 hours is bad, okay? I'm saying on a regular basis. And there's this name in particular that came to my mind right now, Hamza Ahmed. He's a YouTuber. You probably know him. Like he's a self-improvement YouTuber, and I really like that guy. And he's one of the most my one of my biggest inspirations is YouTube, Hamza Ahmed. And there was a time he mentions that he cannot sleep one block. When he sleeps, he wakes up multiple times when I do like stress, whatever. That's why he gives himself 10 hours. And I actually saw something like I kind of put the name of the screen, but I actually forgot. But it's like a song like I put in the screen. It's basically when you want to have the perfect sleep. You're so anxious to have the perfect sleep. That is why you keep on sleeping, whatever. His sleep is very. Try to fix that stress and all that anxiety. Okay. When you try to fix that, you would start to realize that you need the sleep. And also, like if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, like I said, his bed compared to these days, and his bed is very very hard. It's not like soft. These days people sleep in what they kind of just I don't know the word to put. They just enter into the bed, whatever. This is very very soft. His bed was very very hard. And there are certain things like a lot of things that would, as a Muslim, if you like do all the sunnah or whatever, you would see that you need a very little amount of sleep. And what's funny is that it says that for the last 5,000 years, we knew more knowledge about sleep in the last 50 years compared to the last 5,000 years. And what's funny is that most people in the past, they don't even know how to sleep. They don't even have much knowledge on sleep. They just sleep when their body tells them to sleep and then they'll sleep. And they'll wake up naturally, whatever. So you can kind of experiment with your body. So many people are different. Okay? Many people are different. You're a Muslim, like all the prayers, I'm sure like all these things, Allah will always put barakah in your life or whatever, all these things. He'll put barakah. Okay? Imitate the Prophet ﷺ. Do the things, the sunnah, whatever, all these things. You realize that you need very little amount of sleep. And there are some people that say sleep 6 hours, whatever. For me, I will not say I'm sleeping 8 hours, 10 hours. No. I'm sleeping 6 hours. per night, 6 7 hours per night, and then I would have the kailula in the daytime. That's how I've been sleeping. And some days I'll be sleeping like it's like I mentioned like 2 days ago, like I scrolled my phone or whatever. And even yesterday, I did not scroll my phone to the point I sleep like the first time, but I did kind of do some research for this topic, whatever. But I did sleep around 10 p.m. I did not take it to all those things. So life happens sometimes. Like I'm a student of health. Sometimes to memorize the Quran, you don't have the time in the daytime. You have to memorize the Quran at night, whatever. Some things happen. There are certain people that have this night shift work, whatever. So to say you need to sleep 10 hours, you will not be doing justice to everything, to everyone. Okay, so there's kind of a balance to it. Okay, you can go and make your own research. And in the next section of the guide, I'm going to teach you the picture perfect sleep and how it looks like, and so that you can emulate it to as flexible as possible. So now, how does perfect sleep looks like? Before I'm able to tell you everything, I want you to understand there are 4 pillars to having a perfect sleep. Without these 4 pillars, even if you try all the things I'm telling you, it will not be very, very strong. It will not give you a restorative. It will not give you a restorative deep sleep. Pillar number 1: regularity is king, according to Dr. Matthew Walker. Dr. Matthew Walker basically is like one of the best people on sleep. If you just type sleep on YouTube, whatever, you would see his images like a lot. He dedicated his life to learning about sleep, and he mentions that for your brain needs to understand a specific time for sleep and a specific time to wake up. Basically, what he means is that sleep at the same time every single day, including weekends, and also wake up at the same time every single day. There is no like sleeping. He wants against sleeping in the weekends, trying to maximize no, sleep at the same time every day, consistent every single day. Your sleep schedule should be regular. At, for example, 10 p.m. Nothing would stop you from sleeping from 10 p.m. Wake up 5 a.m. Nothing will stop you from every single time. It needs to be exactly the same line, with a little bit of dip and high if such a circumstance happen. But ideally, sleep at the same time every single day. And I had this problem for a while actually. I remember there was a period of while whereby, like in our area, whatever, they view me as like I told you, I'm student head, whatever. So there was a time I was leading Salah. They gave me the assistant imam, basically. Whenever the imam is not available, I will be the person that will lead the Salah. And I was going to the madrasa, so Aisha and Maghrib time will not be available for me, basically. But then there's Fajr Salah. And I was so inconsistent in my Fajr Salah. There was a period whereby the Imam was not available completely, and I was supposed to be in the Fajr. And then I would make up so many excuses like my dad is not allowing me to come out. Like and then the Fajr I'm like, and what's funny is that my house is connected to the masjid. Basically, my dad built the masjid. I have no excuse for me to not miss the Fajr Salah. And every single time they'll be asking me like, why haven't you come out to lead Salah? And I was like, my dad did not allow me to. Or I'll bring those like bogus excuses, whatever. So many excuses. To the point that I had to surrender. I have no other excuse. I live like I can be the first person to be in the masjid because the masjid is connected to our house. And for a while, I actually struggled with this. I would sleep, miss Fajr every day, like consistent. I think I missed Fajr consistent for about maybe like 8 months. Think about that. 8 months. And I was able to actually find out the reason why, because I would sleep basically. And when I sleep, I would wake up like in the middle of the night naturally. I would wake up and I'll go back to sleep. The second time I go back to sleep, I don't actually wake up. Like there's a 90 minute cycle, whatever. I get to wake up. I get to during Fajr is like the time of when I was in like my deepest sleep. and I also had like sleep deprivation, whatever. So every single time I would miss the salah. And I finally figured out why that happened is because I get to wake up multiple times throughout the night. I would sleep, but I would wake up, go back to sleep, wake up, go back to sleep. And the last time I sleep before Fajr Salah, I get to during the Fajr Salah when I was like in my deepest, like this deep sleep, basically entry. And when you're in your deepest sleep, it makes it 10 times harder to wake up, especially for people like us. And then actually, I wasn't able to fix it by myself. My mom had to get involved in this. My mom basically, she saw me, she saw me miss Fajr a lot, and then she actually had to stop me forcefully. She would force me to wake up every single time. And I remember, like, it was, it was so annoying at that time. I remember she would carry like this very, very chill water bottle. She would say, like, she would pour it on me, and immediately when I bring my brain hear about that pain of cold water during Fajr, I would wake up instantly. I'll be like, oh, come on, no, no, like, I had to go. Every day, she would do this every single day. And I would be so pissed off. I would go to the Fajr Salah, I would be so angry, whatever, I would come back, and then I would sleep again, whatever. To the point that I started to wake up consistently. I started to wake up, and actually my brain was able to understand the exact time she would be in the room. So before she would be in the room, I'll be up. And when she see me up, she would not pour the water. So basically, I started to be, and still my bedtime was inconsistent. But my Fajr time was started to become consistent to the point that now these days, I don't wake up with an alarm. I remember yesterday, and I was like researching whatever for this book guide. Like I had to have sleepless nights to bring out this book guide. It took me around like 12 p.m. that I slept, and then I woke up naturally. And so many events like that. I remember there was a time in school I slept 2 a.m. 2, but I woke up without any. I woke up naturally without feeling any god whatever. So when you are consistent every single day at that time, you'll be able to wake up. And now I've been trying to like fix my own bedtime because like I would be able to wake up fine, no problem. But the problem is to go to sleep at the same time. That's why I'm still struggling up to this day. I have sometimes there are days that I have consistent bedtime, but there are days that I have to like engage in like massive projects like this one. I like massive projects like maybe the Qur'an competition, whatever, and it kind of disrupts my sleep time, but my wake up time is consistent. Pillar number 2: create darkness in the last hour before bed. And according to Dr. Matthew Walker, he says try dimming down half or 3/4 of the lights in the last hour. He actually warns against total sleep. He actually warns against total darkness because it's not safe. Like total darkness is not safe completely. You might hit someone, whatever. There are certain things, but he says dim the lights so low. Dim it. When you dim the lights, you will be shocked at how fast you will start to get sleepy. How sleepy you get because of that. I remember there was a time actually when I was in school. I was together with my like two friends, so we were like 3 groups, whatever. We were trying to like study for this physics exam. And I remember there was a time like we were like walking from this department to this department, trying to like study. And we went to this specific like medicine department. We sat down outside, like there were the tiles, whatever, and we plugged our phone in charge. We were starting to study. And I remember that day, it rained that day. So naturally by 10 p.m. the wind started to come, like soft, cold wind. And then I started to like, it started to become unbearable, like totally unbearable. We cannot study in that place. And then we have to move to a different room, whatever. It's called like in an engineering department, whatever. The only like imagine the room was total pitch black. Everywhere was black. The only light source was our torch, and this we were looking at there was a paper like this. And guess who was the first person to start feeling sleepy? Of course, it was me. I started to struggle concentrating on this. Like one of our friends, Abdullah, he was like trying to explain it to us because he knew a little bit better than us. And I was like, I was trying to focus on that. The room was black, and I'll be like, I was trying to like focus, like I was like screwing my eyes whatever. I was trying to focus, and I thought I was the only person that was doing that. Until Abdullah later said, "You know what? I will try our best." I was like, "Oh, I'm not the only person that was like feeling sleepy. So everybody was feeling sleepy, so whatever." And it's a funny story. So back to the point. Pitch black, like when the light is very very low, your brain starts, like you'll be shocked actually. Like it's very very true. And back to the point actually, like when the place is completely dark, if possible. If not, try to reduce the lights, like dim the lights also a little bit. When you dim the lights, it will actually help you to go to sleep. Pillar number 3, which is keep your room cool. Dr. Matthew Walker actually recommend to make the temperature of a room about 18 to 18.5 degrees Celsius. And if you're privileged enough to have like a way to reduce the to kind of reduce the temperature, whatever, fair enough, do that. Put it around 18 to 18.5 degrees. But for people like me who are not privileged enough, how can we be able to reduce the temperature of the room? Basically, it's very easy. Open your windows. Don't lay your windows like complete shut. It's not even safe. Like just open the windows, like open it. But I know you might be thinking something which I thought in my mind as well. Like especially like Nigerians, there's this one insect, or was it they call it a bug? Mosquitoes. Yeah, mosquitoes. This one thing, like oh my god, this one mosquito is like it's just super annoying. You cannot sleep with this kind of insects. So when you just open your windows, that's when they will start to enter into your room, whatever. And also sometimes when you just open the windows, like rats, cats, whatever, you can get into the window, whatever. Keep a net. There should be a net like in between the windows and like kind of to block all these things. And what came out in my mind is that how comes the people in the olden days they slept outside and we sleep indoors, but mosquitoes keep on disturbing us when we are inside? There are so many reasons to that, and one of those reasons is because we have like these water streams around us. It's very close to us. People in the past, like, they don't have it close, like water bottle, whatever, water gutters, all these things. It's not very close. It's very far from them. So mosquitoes basically gather around that place, and when they start to smell carbon dioxide and the lactic acid from your skin, you start to attract them into your house. So, and in the past there was not like this. There's like a net people use, so they kind of cover themselves. Mosquito cannot get in. But in the past we don't have that. So there are certain things like, for example, the neem tree. Some people say that when you burn that, it's mosquitoes hate that smell, whatever. So try to get a net. If you live in like Nigeria or like Africa, any country in Africa, get a net. Open the windows. Let the real breeze like come to your room. And naturally, the breeze that comes into the room is very cold, and it will not be as cold as the temperatures which whatever, but it will be helpful, very very helpful. But because most people these days they kind of lock everywhere completely and like get to sleep and complain why they don't sleep. And I remember there was a time actually Nigeria was very very hot, especially like in Adamawa State where I live. I think it was in 2023 around May time. It was very 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 hot to the point that we have to stay outside. All of us, the entire house, we had to like. It's not like outside the house basically, but it was outside the apartments that we live in. So open like this, like in the middle of the house. We put our mattress and also with hang nets. The breeze was very cold. Around 10 p.m. all of us were asleep. But when we were indoors, like people would be scrolling their phone, whatever. But because we were outside, all of us were asleep. And actually, I get to wake up and do my tahajjud as well around that time. The fourth pillar, which is avoid stimulants, especially alcohol. Dr. Matthew Walker actually warns against alcohol. Alcohol is actually sedative and it knocks you out completely. And although you might get to sleep, get to doze off, but you'll be having fragmented sleep. And also alcohol, it naturally suppresses the REM, which is a rapid eye movement, which is very very useful for like memory consolidation. So it suppresses the REM, which is very very bad. Basically, like try to like as much as you can try to avoid all these stimulants, all this, especially like caffeine, all this alcohol, especially alcohol. Try to avoid that. And I remember there was a time actually during our sabaka whatever, our prep, we were trying to memorize and like at night whatever. We bought actually this energy drink basically. It's called Infinite Power. That was the first time I actually drank it at night. And I used to see my sister like before she was studying for exam, she cannot drink it and stay awake in the night. So I wanted to like try that. Basically, we bought this Infinite Power. We drank it actually. I drank the whole thing, and I was drinking like in sips. So when I'll drink it for about like maybe like 30 minutes, 1 hour. I'll drink it again. So when I drank that, I did not feel any amount of sleep, any sleep. I was like totally, my eye was open, and all the way till that, like as you know, like energy drinks is like a drug, whatever. So by 4 a.m. at night, I was not able to discipline myself to like reach 5, just 1 hour left. I was not able to do that. I was so weak. I was so tired like that. I slept. I drank it again the next day. And here's the problem. The next day, like when you like have energy drinks, it actually brings your like what is it called? The reserved energy. Basically, it brings it out and give it to you. So your reserve need to be kept. The next day I drank it again without replenishing those reserve sleep. The next day I was lying down. My eyes was not sleepy at all. My eyes were completely. I was not feeling any sleep in my eyes, but my body, I was. It was as if I was feeling sleepy, but my eyes was awake. All the pain, all the tiredness was in me, and my eyes were open. I sat down. I tried to recite Qur'an basically. I wasn't able to do that. I tried. I was so tired. Whatever. I sat down like this till around 1 a.m. before I was able to sleep. And from that point, I like the moment I come to bed, I will sleep for hours, but I will not like I will sleep for 7 hours. I'll still feel sleepy the next day. I've been doing that for like 3 4 days before I was able to like kind of restore my sleep basically. So try to avoid stimulants. People talk about caffeine. Like caffeine have like about is it 12 hours to give you energy for like 12 hours or whatever. So by noon, don't take any more caffeine, whatever. If you must, then take it at night to kind of do the project at night. But make sure you replace that because the sleep you would need is to replace your reserved energy and also to replace the normal sleep you have. So we'll be cautious with that. And using all these 4 pillars, we can now create. I would like explain to you how perfect sleep actually looks like. Basically, the ideal time for sleep. Imagine. I want you to imagine yourself in like third person perspective. Like I would kind of explain that the best time because like I cannot just say okay sleep 9 p.m. because there are countries like it's like different timing whatever. I would use the timing of Salah, Isha and Fajr. After Isha, that's the best time to sleep. And in where I live, Isha is like 7:30. So by 8 p.m. it's like that's the amount like I said, 8 p.m. whatever. So, but I will kind of give it a little bit flexibility whatever. So try to sleep between 9 p.m. to 11 a.m. Sorry, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Try to sleep around that, and also try to wake up. Don't say like wake up after the sun. Listen, that's totally it's not good. Sleep and wake up around Fajr time. Fajr is like 5 a.m. 4:30 whatever. Around that time, that's the best time to sleep. And also like when you sleep, you should minimize the amount of waking up and sleeping. So kind of sleep for long sleep, wake up, and you'll be completely refreshed. That's how. Like I did not explain everything in detail. I will explain the next like section where I will give a realistic routine. But this is basically like sleep around Isha, wake up around Fajr, relax naturally without an alarm. That's what is called a perfect sleep. So now I'll give you the realistic routine you can follow. Remember those 4 pillars like I mentioned? Implement that, and after you implement that, I will give you a scenario, every single thing you need to do, all the way from sleep to wake up. The bedtime is actually 9 p.m. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. You should be in bed. If ideally you should be asleep by that time, but you should be in bed around 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then you should sleep on your right side. Don't sleep on your back or your belly, whatever, or your left side. The left side, like the research, they said that the heart is on the left and the liver is on the right. So the liver is like heavier than the heart. So when you sleep on the left side, the liver is kind of add some pressure to the heart, whatever. So try to sleep on the right side. You'll be able, and also like research says that you'll be able to wake up you'll be able to sleep very fast when you like much faster than when you sleep on the left side. So sleep on the right side, and then and you might not like this, but it's a technique which is called embrace boredom. Most people are afraid of saying their own thoughts. They kind of immediately they listen to music or they kind of use their phone and people cope like I'm reading whatever. And embrace boredom. That's the best way. People talk, like so many people, like even entrepreneurs saying that they read to the point that with like red filters or whatever, they start to read and then they'll go to sleep. Embrace boredom. Sit down with your thoughts. Try to clear your mind actually from all this the world, whatever. Like there are people trying to do like meditation, but sit without any device, without anything. And then the next thing I want you to observe: how many minutes does it take you to fall asleep naturally? For me, it takes me like 5 minutes. So if it takes you, for example, 10 minutes, which is like the average, then set an alarm. The alarm you set actually in circles. What I mean by circles is the 90-minute circles I talked about, the sleep architecture, N1, N2, N3, and REM sleep, that 90 minutes, because it restarts the cycle every single 90 minutes. So if you want to wake up after like 90 minutes, after one cycle, set a buffer time. For example, 10 minutes plus 90 minutes, that's how much? 100 minutes. So put an alarm after that. You'll be able to wake up refreshed. If you're going to do 2 cycles, which is like 3 hours, 3 cycles, 4.5 hours, 4 cycles, 5 cycles, 6 cycles, whatever, do that. But I also put this buffer time added to that. And in my own situation, like sometimes I wake up about after like 3 cycles, whatever. So 4.5 hours plus 10 minutes, you'll be able to wake up naturally. And like naturally, I actually sleep in like this polyphasic sleep. But for you, it might be like monophasic sleep, biphasic sleep, whatever. Put an alarm in 90-minute cycles. The reason I emphasize is because when you wake up in the middle of your deep sleep, it gives you this grogginess. Sometimes you know you hear the alarm. Like in my own case, I don't used to hear the alarm. So put in the night after the end of the, you should be at the beginning of the next light sleep, which is about 5 to 10 minutes. Don't pass that, right? Because when you pass that point, you start to enter into the deep sleep again. So it's not advisable. In 90-minute cycles, do that. As soon as you wake up, increase the brightness of your room. Try to increase that. And when you increase the brightness, it makes you like more alert. If you're like me that wake up in the middle of the night to do something and go back to sleep, increase the light if possible. If not, try to like put on the lights of your phone or like the lights on the light bulb, whatever. Increase the brightness. It makes you more alert. When they finish what they're doing in my own scenario, you can go back to sleep, repeat that other thing. But if you are using a monophasic sleep, usually you wake up around Fajr time, and around Fajr is right a few minutes and then the sun will rise. Don't sleep before that. When the sun rises, try to get sunlight. What I mean by try to get sunlight, I don't mean literally to go out and the sun to touch the rays of the sun to touch you. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that the sun should come out and then you should be like try to look at the sun if possible. Like this, like for example, like in this room, the sun is not touching me, but I can still there's whatever the vitamin D whatever to touch me, which is very very good. It makes me like more alert on all this, and then repeat that every single day. Every day, repeat that every single day. Sleep 9 to 11, wake up around 40 times. Do that every day, and it trains, like I said, it trains this your psychology to kind of understand. Okay, this is the time for sleep. This is the time for wake up. And when you do that consistently, like naturally, around that time you start to feel sleepy. Naturally, around that time you will start to wake up. That's the essence. That you can tweak this routine like the way you like it, or whatever. But don't forget the 4 pillars that I mentioned. And now, my own model, the protocol I went on, that allowed me to memorize half of the Quran. Basically, you'll be able to sleep less and do more. This might sound like clickbaity, whatever, but I want you to understand this. This is not actually the clickbait, it's actually real. Remember in the first part of the video, I mentioned that the people in the olden days, like the hunter-gatherer era, they sleep very less, about 6 to 6.5 hours. Actually realized that you can actually emulate that. Actually, I started to understand like you don't need like this 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Optimize this 6.5 hours. Like basically, I don't mean like a one block, whatever. You have to do something which is called the polyphasic sleep. You might try this. It's not ideally for every single person. If it's ideal, you can try it for some like about 2 weeks. If it's not sustainable for you, then you find it off. You can find your own model and try to like do the monophasic sleep like people the doctors explain. But there's actually one condition to this, which is faith. You have to have faith. You can be either a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, or any other religion like that. Ideally, like I'm a Muslim, but want you for the Muslims, the best option is to be like have the faith of a Muslim. Basically, in the model, you would first have a sleep block, a large sleep block. Wake up, go back to sleep, and then in the daytime can have another block of sleep. I want you to understand what is important in sleep is actually the N3, which is the deep sleep, and also the REM sleep. These are the two important things, and we have to like try to optimize and maximize these two. When you maximize that, you don't need like the 10 hours of sleep. The first thing actually, like I said, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. you should be asleep, but you can do even less than that, and the lesser than that is the better actually, when you sleep like around 8 p.m. whatever. So the first thing, and this might sound completely out of the point, but understand, which is remembering death, and also like in other words, remembering the creator. Basically, you can remember death and also remember the creator, and he created you all the virtues whatever. And I have so many scientific reasons to prove that. The first one is called GABA. Basically, when you start to remember death, this actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system in the brain, and this actually triggers the release of GABA, which means gamma aminobutyric acid. It quiets the prefrontal cortex. Remember that prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that thinks about like long-term mission, all these things. Basically, all the racing thoughts that come to your mind at the time of sleep. When you start to remember death or your creator of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it starts quiets down this prefrontal cortex. And when it quiets it down, it actually help reduce the chances of like insomnia, because some people are having so many thoughts, like thinking about it to the point that they will not be able to sleep. So try remembering Allah. Try remembering death and how you depart from this world. You are not permanent in this world. So by remembering these things, it kind of releases this, what is it called, chemical, the GABA, which is the gamma aminobutyric acid. The second thing is actually melatonin. By practicing death remembrance, it actually reduces cortisol. Cortisol is like the stress hormone, whatever. And naturally, when you start to reduce the release of cortisol, naturally your melatonin starts to increase. And melatonin actually signals the sleep architecture. Remember those 4 sleep architectures I mentioned: N1, N2, N3, and the REM. So by when you have like an increased level in your melatonin, you'll be able to sleep. You start feeling sleepy and be able to go and sleep. The third hormone, as we call the hormone chemical, whatever, is called serotonin. Spiritual remembrance often invokes safety and connection. Basically, you kind of feel more at ease. You kind of start to contemplate what is happening like all your life and the ni'mas that your creator created you and give you. This can actually stimulate the production of serotonin. It's actually a precursor to melatonin. This creates emotional equilibrium. It will actually feel like a peaceful surrender. Instead of like, I must sleep, you will be able to surrender naturally and go to sleep. The fourth thing is called endorphin. Letting go of these worldly attachments can release mild levels of endorphin. Endorphin basically is like a natural sedative effects. When the brain releases that, it starts to relax the body and slows your heart rate. And here's a very, very important thing, which is called DMN. It stands for default mode network. This is actually the part of your brain that is responsible for like remembering the past and the future, and also ego. By actively remembering death, you would leave this world like there's nothing in this world. You would leave this world trying to like bring the ego down. It deactivates that part of the brain, which will allow you to have like a more restorative deep sleep, the N3. And just by remembering death, so basically the first thing you need to do when you are in bed, to remember death. Okay, remember death, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then peacefully go to sleep. Close your eyes. Like all the du'as, the Prophet ﷺ, like all the du'as, like for example, the last three calls if you're a Muslim, and all these things, and then go to sleep. And then set an alarm, like I said, like in the previous method, set an alarm. However long cycles. For in my scenario is like the 3 cycles first. I'll put an alarm 3 cycles, which is 4.5 hours, and then I'll put a buffer 10 minutes. So after that, I'll wake up naturally. When I wake up naturally, and then when you do that, you need to have like I said, a polyphasic sleep. When you wake up around 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., that's when you should wake up. So like you can wake up as much as you want, but try to have the sleep block before the time you wake up should be a cycle, at least a cycle. So when you wake up, try to engage in some sort of spiritual activity. In my scenario, which is Tahajjud, and if you don't know Tahajjud, there's a full guide I created on Tahajjud. You can watch that. It's a 3 hours. It's a long video. You can kind of watch it. Pick the thing you want to pick from the video. It's available. Tahajjud, which is very very important. It has so many benefits. I'm not gonna give the benefits in this video because I did a complete course, a full guide on that. So many benefits to the Tahajjud, and when you do Tahajjud, then go back to sleep. Basically, you should have at least 1 cycle. Go back to sleep. So in my scenario, that would be like 6 hours of sleep. And then if it's not enough for you, you can sleep again in the daytime basically. But have what's called a power nap. It's called Elula. Around noon time, around 1 to 2 p.m. in the daytime, have a 20 minutes or a 40 minutes. I don't really recommend passing that 1 hour mark because you kind of have like I would say a second sleep basic, second sleep block. But around 20 minutes to 40 minutes, around that, set an alarm. I tried that. It's very very like it's much more enjoyable than full night sleep. There was a research I saw that 40 minutes of Kailula, the power nap, is better than 2 hours of sleep, and I'm living evidence of this because when I sleep 2 hours, 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes. I feel so much better. Like I feel so much better when I sleep that, and also the days I sleep that, I'll be able to sleep a little in the daytime. In the nighttime, I still wake up for the Tahajjud, and the days I do not do that, I'm very like inconsistent Tahajjud. So basically, this is my own routine, my own protocol. Do all the things: sleep, wake up, sleep. I'm not saying I created this protocol. I kind of shaped it to the point that it's as flexible for because I was still a HEP student. Some of the times you have to sit down. You do not have the time in the daytime and all these things. You have to sit down and do the Qur'an at night. So I was able to shape it to fit my own protocol. And I'm not kidding. This single protocol allowed me to produce so much in a short amount of time because especially this time, I have usually allowed 2 hours of the wake up in the middle of the night from 1 to 3. These 2 hours, I was able to produce so many things. I was able to memorize half of the Quran. So many things I was able to do in just this period of time, which is a very very productive time. So try to do that. Have a polyphasic sleep. You can test that. If it's not sustainable for you, then try all the things. Sometimes it might not feel good at the beginning because you might interrupt your sleep or listen. But I'm telling you, I'm giving you hope. This will actually change your life. It will help you so much. This polyphasic sleeps, and when you're starting to feel lightheaded and dizzy in the daytime, fair enough. It's because you probably have like a sleep debt in the past and kind of replace that sleep in the daytime. I'm starting to realize that my brain has been developing this bad habits for the last few days, disguised as productive. I realized that for the last 2-3 days I've been productive at night for some reason. Coping saying that I'm creating this full guide and all those things. I think I have to fix that because I cannot be out here explaining to you all the dangers and all these things and I'm still doing it myself. And what I actually realized is that this thing does not happen anywhere except the last block before you sleep. That's when you replace the good habits, when you replace the bad habits, when you remove the bad habits, there will be a gap whereby the good habits will kind of take its place, but it kind of turn into somehow, I will not say, like basically what happened is that I removed the bad habits basically and it left an open gap. Instead of the good habits to come in, it's semi good habits. That's what came in. because I was productive at night. But that's not what I should do. Night is not the time to be productive. Night is supposed to wind down and sleep. And what I need actually is a hard cutoff. I realized that the actually sat down and I wanted to do that if you are facing this kind of problem. I sat down, actually started to figure out why am I being productive at night? Why am I doing excessively the good habits instead of sleeping? What I realized is that sometimes there's the friends, all those things. Sometimes you might get distracted. For example, when you're working with your internet connection on, someone might message you and all those things. So I had to realize in my own scenario actually is the friends, okay? They would message me, they would keep like for some reason we will be together the whole day. There will be no like important stuff to discuss except at night time. You will see a massive thing to discuss. And actually I need a hard reset. And you know what? This was really together with me. Okay? The plan I actually used that in the past actually is sometimes you might have a friend that is stubborn. Like in my opinion. You might have in my own scenario actually there are friends that are like so stubborn. And so you cannot just speak to them and they'll listen or whatever. In my own scenario you might do that as well. I'm thinking the best thing to do actually is put your phone in airplane mode. Basically, when you're messaging someone, okay, when he messages you and he saw it's not you're not like he will try to call you, and it's like it happened to me so many times. He called me. There was a time I was asleep. He called me. I saw his missed call. I was like, what's so important that you need to discuss? He called me like 3 times, so I thought it was like an emergency or whatever. And it was around 11. I came online like, what is happening? What is it like? Is there something next? But like, what's the emergency? And I was like, no one is online, so I'm bored. Oh god, the pain. I was like, I was not able to describe how, but how foolish that statement is. You're bored. No one's online. The person creating the full guide, the person that it. Oh my god! Like, oh my god. And I was like, great. You ruined my sleep again. And I was laughing whatever. I just messaged him a little bit and then I went back to sleep whatever. So the best option, put your phone in airplane mode. And I will try to do that as well. Put a hard I'm not sure what there's a way that you can kind of automate these things. Put your phone in airplane mode by XPM. Hard cut off. And this is gonna be hard actually. This is gonna be hard. Why? Because you would have this cravings, this all these like cravings to kind of do this thing whatever. And then you can probably give someone your phone. Or have someone that will hold you accountable, because when nobody holds us accountable, when we have these massive cravings, it's very difficult to get through that. The way I see some people, they will kind of start to meditate, and when they start to meditate, the cravings start to reduce and everything, so they will forget everything they're doing, whatever. I think I'll try that airplane mode and then I'll meditate. That should be, because this is not a full guide if I myself am not implementing what I'm talking about. I need to start implementing it first before anyone else implements it. And this is gonna be probably one of the last few sections before I end the guide. And in this section, I will address certain issues about life integration. How can you integrate this full guide into your day-to-day life? And I don't understand how distracting friends can be, because like I mentioned, like I've been to that. If you know me, you know me that I used to actually leave people, like for example, if friends talk to me, I would just allow. I'm like kind of too good, too kind, or whatever. And if you don't understand, I actually understand fairly well how distracting friends are. I don't understand. People might be in like a night shift job. You might be in like night shift job, and although I did not do a night shift job, but actually I did stay up like late nights for like over 2 months, 3 months. That's why I don't understand fairly well, because there was a time in particular we left our house basically together with like 2 of my friends, 3 of my friends. Sorry, we went to like a madrasa trying to like revise Qur'an and all these things. And this particular day, I was sitting down. I wore like a blue soap. I kind of sat down in like there's a mat and I opened my Quran. I was like kind of reciting Quran, whatever. My one of my friends, he was making a call. He was a little bit far from us. He was making a call, whatever. And then we heard this loud sound, like this kind of this. I don't know. You might understand this. Like it's called napep in Nigeria. It's basically you can search keke napep. Just search it. KEKENAPEP. You see that it's like kind of a taxi, but without the window doors, whatever. We had that loud sound, and normally it's not as loud as this. And I was like, nah, let's just continue on. It just actually what happened was that there was a thief. So basically, there's those people, men like the police. They were full in that this like this taxi basically. It was full. So he was matching the. He was like accelerating as fast as possible. They were trying to rush you, and that thief was running as well. So my friend who was making a call, it just entered. They just turned the corner, whatever, and he just saw people like following him, like whatever, and he thought it's actually armed robbers, whatever. So he started to run as well. So I didn't even realize that, and when I just lifted my head up, I was reciting. When I lifted my head up, I saw like my friend ran and like a massive jump into the madrasa, and I started to like get into like this fight or flight, whatever. I turned. What I saw is that the taxi was full. There was someone who was outside the taxi following that thief, and what I was able to see, I saw he like threw this like what's it called, the bats, whatever. He threw it on him. He catch in the middle and he was throwing it again. So I thought it was one of my friends. So I instantly got into the flight. One of my friends ran into the madrasa and these people, they were like hitting him, running, whatever. So I was like, where will I go? What are all these things? It's funny. And they later caught that thief actually. Later caught him, whatever. So sometimes night shift, I don't understand very well night shifts. If you must do night shift, there was a part of the video, like you can recap in the earlier part of the video, I would explain it again. If you must have a night shift, try to sleep in the daytime. The problem is like there was a disease actually that would develop in people that are doing night shift, that are not sleeping at night. But there's a solution to that. Because you remember I have that only, that's probably a only option, whatever. So try, and I did it as well. I'm speaking from personal experience. Normally, if I would sleep in the daytime, I will not pass this 3 hours mark. But if you turn off all the lights in the house, lock the windows, block the light source, basically, like I'll put a blanket, block all the windows. I'll kind of turn on the fan, whatever, if this, so I can get the ventilation, whatever, the air. I would sleep for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes, because there was no light. So try to stimulate, I would say, the night time. The night time is supposed to be dark. Your brain is on the sun dark and cool, whatever. Try to stimulate that if possible. If not, just have hope in Allah, whatever. Because there are certain things that are bound to come. There are certain things I cannot just tell you, since you're not able to sleep at night, you're gonna have this disease like all these people, the way doctors called it. And all these diseases actually, those are actually chances. It's not inevitable, but there are very, very high chances of that happening. But we know you have hope in us. There are certain things we can control, and there are certain things we cannot control. So no matter how much you kind of optimize your sleep, or no matter how much, some of the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you. So you need to understand this. We have to use hope, because there are so many black pills, whatever, talking about if you don't get 8 hours of sleep, you'll be having heart disease. Like no. I just spoke about the dangers of that for like mindlessly, like intentionally, okay. But if you are trying your best to optimize your sleep, to fix your sleep, and you're still having these kind of problems like night shift and all these things, have hope in Allah. Sometimes I don't understand how tempting the phone is. It's very, very tempting. Like they kind of hijack your dopamine sensors in the brain. And those things, that's why I mentioned in the beginning of the video, is going to be difficult. But for the next 2 weeks, two weeks, about a month, you will start to get used to it. And what would actually help you, like use the strategies I mentioned in the video. It's going to be difficult, but you have to just push through. It's not going to be like massively difficult, whatever, but it's not going to be easy. do the things I mentioned, all these things. It will greatly help you. And I'm also doing this as well. But there will be days that you will not be consistent. Remember, I said from the like I've been creating this full guide for like 2 weeks or whatever. The first part of the full guide, I was so consistent with my sleep. But after some time, I started to have a dip or whatever. All these things is bound to come. There will be days you miss it. There will be days you miss your schedule. There will be days, in fact, there will be days you will not even sleep at night at all. Because I remember there was a time, actually, I wanted to sleep. It was in, I think it was day of Eid. There was this, my step grandmother. Basically, she passed away that night. My step grandmother, she was severely sick. So me and my mom would visit her in the place. And I sat down actually. There was a only male in the room. There were about 7 or 8 females, whatever. And all of them were looking at her. Some people were weeping, like she was severely sick. She was not able to breathe. They had to put this, like, to be able to pump her oxygen, whatever. She was not able to breathe normally. And so they just started to say, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. Some they were even weeping and they were just trying to just get her to say, La ilaha illallah. They kept on doing that, kept on doing that. She was not able to speak a word. They kept on doing that. And I was sitting down. Some people tried to turn on the Surah Al-Baqarah. And I remember Surah Al-Baqarah. I didn't want to like recite it in front of them because I don't really like showing myself up, whatever. But if they ask me, I would do recite. And if my mom asked me, I would do recite. But on normal basis, I don't really like to speak it out or whatever, all these things. So I was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah in a very low voice. I was imitating, like they turn on Sheikh Sudais, whatever. They were trying all they can to just have, like, our step grandmother, whatever. They were trying to show her to speak, to just say La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. It was around 12 p.m., 12 a.m. at night. So you can understand some of the things might happen. And she not passed away that night, but she passed away. Actually, she passed away that night. Actually, we left. It was around 12 p.m. So you might understand that the night, sometimes you might not control that. We left. We have to come back home. We came back home, and I later heard that after we came back, she passed away. She passed away around 1 a.m. So try to understand some of the things you cannot control. So me telling you that because there was a video I saw Dr. Matthew Walker saying that if you do not make the minimum requirements, there's a 24% chance of having the heart disease, whatever. He mentioned, like, if today you do not get, for example, the 7 hours of sleep, there's a 24% chance. But in my mind, I was like, no. Some of the days you cannot control that. Like even the Prophet, like I mentioned, he had the perfect days. There was a time he was reciting Qur'an. He was doing Tahajjud, whatever, for the entire night. So you cannot just tell me he replaced 8 hours of sleep in the daytime, whatever. So some of this might happen. All these diseases I mentioned, all these risks, all these are chances, but don't take them for granted. Make dua, try to do as much as we can. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. And I can't believe this full guide is coming to an end. I started this full guide for about 2 weeks. I started recording this full guide for 2 weeks. I didn't realize that I would end the video today. And if you watch this far, I don't really know the words I can express how grateful I am. How much I appreciate you watching this far of the full guide. This is probably like 2 hours full guide. You took your time to watch this entire thing. You watching this is one of the greatest steps you take in your future, in your entire life. And I wish I was in your own position watching from a guy like me. You really deserve a tap in the back. You really did a great thing watching this full guide. But As you know, knowledge, having the information, having all knowledge is just one part of the equation. The next part of the equation is you implementing all the things in the end. And in the beginning part of the video, I mentioned I have a sleep score of 22 out of 32. Basically, what I want to do now for the next 2 weeks, and probably let's just do it together. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to challenge both of us to take a score today. Implement all the things in this full guide, and after 2 weeks, take another score for your sleep. And I would really appreciate if you kind of mentioned that this full guide really helped you, because producing this kind of full guide is not easy at all. They just complain releasing like 10 minutes video and they burn out all those things. This is 2 hours full guide. Share this video around. And there's a one quote I found which is have been circulating around. I really like that quote, because when you start to become consistent in your sleep, when you start to do things, you start to build this ego, this arrogance. And there was a time I gave a story in this channel about this arrogance and other thing. And every single time I remember this quote, it's kind of bringing me back to my place. Too much attention makes a donkey think he's a lion. When you really internalize this is one of the best quotes, and I found it randomly in the internet. Every single time I'm reciting Qur'an or I see myself as better than some people, instantly I just write it down. Or sometimes I touch the quote, whatever. Sometimes I just remember the quote. I am the donkey. I say it to myself. I'm not gonna sugarcoat these things. Too much attention makes a donkey think he's a lion. And I was the donkey. Immediately, I'm back to my place. So I would like to end this guide, this statement. Click on this video. It's a full in-depth guide on Tahajjud to take your sleep to the next level. Too much attention makes a donkey think he's a lion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.